First things first, I love Frozen 2. In fact, I love it so much that it inspired me to make my first YouTube video. I've seen the movie 4 times at this point, so you can trust me when I say it had some serious issues. But never fear, good people of YouTube.
I can fix it.
As I said in my previous Frozen video, I am an idiot. The filmmakers and songwriters of the Frozen movies are geniuses who literally all have Oscars. I have nothing, except of course a deep love for the Frozen franchise, so just know that everything I say in this video, I say out of love for these characters and this universe. So let's jump in. Like I mentioned, I already made a previous video about Frozen 2, where I argued that Elsa should have found her parents' shipwreck much earlier in the movie. Go check it out if it sounds interesting, but it's not a prerequisite for this video. I'll be describing totally separate ideas. If you read the reviews of Frozen 2, you'll see the word messy thrown around a lot. After my first viewing, I was a little confused by this. I walked out of the theater feeling largely satisfied by the conclusion of the film. But after rewatching it a couple times and thinking about it a ridiculous amount, the cracks started to be more apparent. Let's look specifically at the scene with Elsa in Ahtohallan. Over the course of a few minutes, Elsa re-experiences her childhood through the power of a memory glacier, sings a duet with her dead mother, solves the mystery of the dam, learns that her grandfather was racist against magic, comes to terms with her kingdom's checkered past, accepts her role as the 5th elemental spirit, and realizes she isn't cut out to be Queen of Arendelle. Each one of these threads have merit individually, but when you mix together all these conclusions in one pot, the emotional weight of each one gets diluted. What should be the emotional climax ends up being less satisfying and more mystifying. That said, the finale isn't the problem. It's just a symptom of the actual problem: the truly bizarre mythology of the forest spirits and Ahtohallan. Here's a quick rundown of all the lore introduced by this movie. For starters, there's a magical river in the far north called Ahtohallan that holds the secrets of the universe. Most people think this is a myth popularized by a children's lullaby. There's also an enchanted forest where 4 elemental spirits live: the earth spirit, which takes the form of a horde of rock giants, the fire spirit in the form of an adorable salamander, the water spirit in the form of a pissed-off horse, and the air spirit in the form of, air. The whole forest got under the dome 34 years ago in the wake of a mysterious conflict between Arendelle and the native North Uldrens, so no one can get in or out. There's also a fabled 5th spirit that unites the other 4 elements, which eventually turns out to be ice? Or maybe Elsa? Or Elsa and Anna together as the 2 halves of the bridge that is the 5th spirit? I don't know. Throughout the film, Elsa is also hearing a mysterious voice on the wind that no one else can hear. In the end, it's revealed that the voice is actually her mother's. Except not really her mother's, because it's just a memory of her mother from 34 years ago being broadcast on the magical airwaves through the power of Ahtohallan. But also, the person she was looking for the whole time wasn't her mother, it was herself. Or maybe her true identity as the 5th spirit, which, again, she's only half of. There's a few other issues which I readily admit are pretty minor and didn't actually detract from my viewing experience, but they're worth mentioning anyway. First, why is Elsa just hearing this voice now? It's been 3 years since she fully embraced her powers, and the forest has been under the mist for 34 years, so what changed? Also, at the end, it's briefly mentioned that the spirits intentionally drove everyone out of Arendelle so they'd be safe when the dam gets destroyed and the tidal wave hits. But if the spirits were nice enough to do that at the beginning, why did they keep trying to kill everyone for the whole movie? I mean, that horse was definitely trying to kill Elsa. Finally, this last thing isn't very specific, but it's just kind of annoying that the element that unites fire, earth, air, and water is ice. I mean, aesthetically and logically, it's just kind of odd. They really lean heavily on the visual imagery of the snowflake as the unification of the 4 diamonds, which is actually pretty effective in the moment, but still kind of unsatisfying when you stop to think about it. Look, I'm not trying to be sarcastic or nitpicky here. I think the filmmakers took a big swing, and it mostly works. I still find the finale to be overall satisfying. My main complaint is that the filmmakers are using the mythology of the 5th spirit as a crutch. If the movie ends with Elsa self-actualizing by accepting her role as the 5th spirit, that's fine. But I want that to happen in concert with a compelling character arc, not in place of one. So how would I fix all these issues? Well, pretty simple. Elsa shouldn't be the 5th spirit. In fact, Elsa's magic should be totally unrelated to the elemental forest magic and to Ahtohallan. I'm going to explain how that premise will get incorporated into the rest of the plot, describing some more specific tweaks to the mythology along the way. Let's start with the inciting incident. In the original movie, Elsa, Anna, and the gang head out to the Enchanted Forest to find the source of the mysterious voice Elsa's been hearing. Well, since Elsa's magic isn't connected to the forest or Ahtohallan, she's not hearing any magical voice either, so we're gonna need a new inciting incident. Well, as luck would have it, I already made a 14-minute video describing what I think the inciting incident should have been. Namely, Elsa should find her parents' shipwreck at the beginning of the movie while exploring the coast of Arendelle. Check out my last video for details on why I think this should have been the case. If you haven't seen it, don't worry, here's the TLDR. It would have given more momentum to the plot, helped incorporate Anna and Elsa's parents into the story, and made Queen Iduna's presence in the finale more thematically relevant. But I want to quickly provide some emotional context behind her discovery of the ship. I want to answer the question that, surprisingly, no one asked me in the comments of my last video. Why the heck was Elsa wandering around the coastline of Arendelle? Well, in short, because she's not happy. I mean, sure, she has friends and family around her, her kingdom is prospering, she's a literal god, but still, she can't get over a lingering sense of dissatisfaction. Why is she dissatisfied? Well, frankly, I think there's about a dozen good reasons why Elsa might realistically be unhappy or depressed. The fact that Frozen 2 doesn't wrestle with any of them is, in my opinion, a huge failing of the movie. Maybe she's terrified she can't be the sister Anna wants her to be. Maybe she doesn't want to live in the place where she was, for all intents and purposes, imprisoned for her whole childhood. Maybe she still struggles with the self-loathing and fear of human connection instilled in her by her low-key awful parents. Maybe she's afraid that the happy ending from the last movie just isn't enough for her. Or maybe she can never be truly happy, because she doesn't trust her own happiness to last. Sadly, in the actual movie, this is all executed in the most surface-level way imaginable. The only time we see Elsa actually express any innate dissatisfaction is this one line from Into the Unknown.
Or are you someone out there who's a little bit like me, who knows deep down I'm not where I'm meant to be?
So, with that emotional context, it makes sense that Elsa's feeling a little cooped up in the castle. We're going to repurpose the Into the Unknown sequence to establish that Elsa has been leaving the kingdom alone to go on long walks, to escape the pressure of being a perfect queen and sister, to experiment with her expanding powers, but mostly just to be alone. In a montage, she can revisit the halls of her ice castle on North Mountain, walk through the landscape surrounding Arendelle, give the impression that she's traveling vast distances on a fruitless journey of self-discovery. It's the exact kind of musical montage that Disney Animation is so good at pulling off. During this sequence, we're also going to have Elsa demonstrate a new power we haven't seen before, and bear with me on this because it's going to sound strange initially. Elsa will be able to make tunnels underwater made of transparent ice that let her explore the ocean floor, kind of like those tunnels you see in aquariums. During the final verse of Into the Unknown, Elsa will be exploring the ocean floor off the coast of Arendelle, and that's where she'll find the wreckage of her parents' ship. This way, the inciting event, the discovery of the ship, actually occurs as a natural extension of Elsa's character. She's discontent with her life, so she goes on long walks as a form of escapism, and that leads directly to her discovery of the ship. Compare this to the actual film where she just starts hearing the voice for no apparent reason, even though at this point Elsa's had her powers for 24 years and the conflict she's being called upon to solve happened 34.5 years ago. So that's the end of Act 1. Everything else plays out similarly to how it does in the actual movie, but with two important differences. First, the sisters know from the get-go that their ultimate destination is Ahtohallan, and secondly, we have a little more context for Elsa's feelings of dissatisfaction. Okay, Act 2. I'm going to quickly walk you through the actual plot as a point of reference. The gang gets to the Enchanted Forest and penetrates the barrier with the help of Elsa's powers. They immediately encounter the Wind Spirit in the form of a big tornado, but Elsa manages to tame it. At this point, they're confronted by the Northuldra and the Arendellian soldiers. This is when you get Olaf's recreation of Frozen 1. Then, the Fire Spirit attacks, which Elsa also manages to tame. Then they learn that their mother was Northuldra. After traveling a little further north, they find their parents' ship. Then Elsa sends Anna and Olaf down the mountain in an ice canoe and heads north to Ahtohallan alone. In the rewritten version, Act 2 plays out in much the same way with just one big change. After it's revealed that Anna and Elsa are half Northuldra, I'd add a new scene. A big feast where the Arendellian soldiers, the Northuldrans, Elsa, Anna, Kristoff, and Olaf just kinda chill out. At this point in the story, the sisters already know that Ahtohallan is their ultimate destination, so there's no reason for them to rush off the way they do in the movie. They even abandoned Kristoff in the actual movie, which I thought was kinda cold-hearted. Plus, it's just been revealed that Arendelle and Northuldra have been united through marriage, so there's cause for celebration. During the feast, show Elsa getting to know Ryder and Honeymaren. Have her loosen up, tell some jokes, do some party tricks with her powers. You can contrast this with the charade scene from earlier, where she was noticeably distracted and anxious. If you're gonna have Elsa live with the Northuldrans at the end, you've got to establish why she feels more at home with them than in Arendelle. This feast is a perfect chance to establish that. It's also a good opportunity for some exposition that might explain a little more about the Northuldran mythology. Since the idea of this rewrite is to keep Elsa's magic as separate as possible from the forest magic, I'm going to introduce some new rules. Some of these may sound strange initially, but they'll all figure into the finale in a really satisfying way, I promise. First, we're getting rid of the entire concept of the fifth spirit. I think slotting Elsa into a cosmically predetermined role as a magical forest spirit is just a lame way of papering over the weaknesses with her character arc. The concept of the spirit is mentioned once by Honeymaren and once in the final scene. The whole thing feels very shoehorned into the movie, so we're scrapping it entirely. Secondly, we're going to make some changes to the geography. In the movie, there's a river that flows into Northuldra from the north that got dammed up 34 years ago by King Runard. Let's just call this river the Northuldra River. In the rewrite, Ahtohallan is going to be a tributary of the Northuldra River. If you forgot third grade science, that's okay. A tributary is a stream or river that merges into a larger river. Now, just to be super clear, the river that's dammed up isn't Ahtohallan itself, but Ahtohallan flows into that river at some point in the far north. Put another way, if you followed the Northuldra River far enough north, you'd eventually get to Ahtohallan. No one in living memory has ever managed to get there because, as Yelena briefly mentions, the rock giants roam the far north, making the passage very treacherous. I think this makes a ton of sense. I mean, think about it. Elsa's arc in the movie revolves around finding Ahtohallan, a mystical river that holds the secrets of the universe. And the primary human conflict in the film revolves around another river, specifically the one that got dammed up 34 years ago. Yet, somehow in the final movie, those two facts aren't actually related at all. The dam is just a dam, and it has no relation to Ahtohallan. In fact, Ahtohallan is on an entirely different continent. Elsa literally has to cross the ocean to get there. It's very odd. Thirdly, and this is a big one, Ahtohallan is the source of the elemental forest magic. Specifically, Ahtohallan is this fount of magical energy, and its waters flow into the Northuldra River, which in turn is the source of the magic for the forest spirits. The Northuldra didn't realize this when the dam was being built because the spirits had been around for all of living memory, but after the dam was built, the magic of the forest started to wane. This is why the Northuldran chief wanted to take down the dam all those years ago. It also explains why the spirits have been largely dormant since the mist fell. They're weak because their life force is tied to the river and it's been mostly cut off. You may be wondering how the spirits are alive at all if their life force was cut off 40 years ago. Well, in this version, there's a little bit of water spilling over the top of the dam and flowing into the forest. It's enough to keep the spirits alive, but they're in a weakened state. Some of you real diehard nitpickers may be wondering how the air and fire spirits had enough energy to attack Elsa in Act 2. Well, let's just say when Elsa entered the forest, she brought with her an infusion of magical energy that briefly reinvigorated the spirits. After the Feast of Exposition, Anna, Elsa, and Olaf head out in an ice canoe, with Elsa propelling them with a prolonged ice blast from her fingertips, kind of like an outboard motor. As they head further north, the terrain gets more mountainous and the water gets rougher and rougher. Eventually, they stumble upon the rock giants. At this point, Elsa freaks out and sends Anna and Olaf back downriver in their own separate canoe. Without Elsa's magic to propel them upriver, they quickly get swept back down south towards the enchanted forest. In an effort to get to the shore, Anna accidentally sends them down a side channel that leads to an underground waterfall, kind of like the original film. Elsa somehow defeats or evades the rock giants, it doesn't really matter. Then she continues upstream towards Ahtohallan. End of Act 2. After a long journey northward, Elsa finally arrives at Ahtohallan. Like in the movie, Ahtohallan is a huge glacier, but unlike the movie, she doesn't need to cross an ocean to get there. It's a shame, but we have to get rid of that water horse sequence where Elsa is trying to get off the beach. It's exceptionally good, but it just doesn't work with the new geography we're using in this rewrite. We see that there's a stream of water flowing out of a cave at the foot of the glacier. This is the stream that holds the magic that provides the energy for the forest spirits. Elsa follows that stream into the glacier and eventually stumbles upon a dark, underground glacial lake. These are actually a real thing. They're called subglacial lakes, so there is some geographical basis for this. This lake in particular looks kind of like the creepy cavern lake at the end of Harry Potter 6, or maybe the underground lake in Lord of the Rings where Gandalf fights the Balrog, except this water flickers with an eerie blue light. Elsa dives into the water and sees that the blue light is coming from shadowy silhouettes of people in places far below her, long-lost memories. But she can't make out any details and the sounds are muffled. Eventually she realizes she needs to go deeper. So she uses the same trick she used at the beginning of the movie and creates a watertight ice tunnel descending into the depths of the lake. This is where keeping the various magic systems separate gets fun. On the one hand, Ahtohallan is a mystical memory river that's almost impossible to get to, but Elsa, with her entirely unrelated ice powers, is able to both propel herself upriver, defend against the rock giants, and dive deep to the bottom of an ice-cold glacial lake, things that no regular human could possibly do. The two magic systems interact in interesting and unexpected ways, and it makes the finale of the movie so much more satisfying. So Elsa descends deeper into the lake, surrounded by a tunnel of clear ice. As she goes deeper, she hears and sees snippets of memories playing out in the water outside of the tunnel. The deeper she goes, the further she sees into the past. Start by showing some events from Frozen 1. Hans, the Duke of Weselton, the showdown on the ice. Have Elsa wince at her let it go moment from last movie, that was brilliant. Show Elsa seeing a younger version of herself, folding rows of satin gloves, looking longingly out at kids playing in the town square. And as this plays out, show some cracks silently forming in the tunnel behind her. Elsa dives deeper. As in the film, this is when she learns that the dam was a trick from their grandfather. More cracks start to show. Finally, she sees that her grandfather killed the Northuldra leader in cold blood. At this precise moment, the tunnel above her gives way and water starts rushing in from above. She shoots off the ice message to Anna like in the original movie, and just as the wall of water is about to hit her, she raises her hands in defense, and then we cut to a wide shot of the lake. You see the entire lake freeze over, and the blue pulsing light fades to black. Since the lake is frozen, the water stops flowing out of the glacier, cutting off the last dregs of magic from the Northuldra. You see the forest start to die. The winds die down and the leaves fall to the ground. You see Bruni the salamander getting weak and cold. This is the ticking clock. Unless the dam gets destroyed, the forest spirits will wither away and die. You see, there's still a big reserve of magical energy in the reservoir. After all, it got filled up before Elsa froze over Ahtohallan. So if the dam is destroyed, there will be an infusion of magical energy that will save the forest. The next bit of the story plays out in a similar way. Anna gets the ice message from Elsa and realizes the dam is a trick, but with no magic flowing into the forest, the link between Olaf and Elsa is severed, so Olaf starts flurrying away and eventually dies in Anna's arms. She sings the next right thing, escapes the cave, and provokes the rock giants. As she's being chased by the rock giants, she falls down, just like in the movie. One of the giants approaches her and lifts a giant foot to crush her. That's when we cut back to Elsa. Elsa froze the wave of water 12 inches before it hit her. She's trapped in a tiny cavity under 1,000 feet of ice. It's extremely cold, she's shivering and weak. She tries to melt the ice, but she can't. Remember, her ability to melt ice is proportional to love.
Love will thaw. Love. Of course.
But at this point in the story, she doesn't feel loved. She's just learned that her grandfather didn't trust people like her, people with magic. She also just saw her entire childhood play out in front of her eyes and was vividly reminded of the isolation and guilt that in many ways defines her. Then, a memory materializes. It's a scene we've seen before. It's her parents, just before they leave on their final voyage.
Do you have to go?
You'll be fine, Elsa.
In Frozen 1, that's all we see. Agnar and Iduna just walk away, but this time we see the rest of the scene play out. Memory Elsa stands sadly at the foot of the stairs. She's panicking. It's the first time she's been left alone this long, and she's terrified. Just as Iduna is about to walk out the door, Memory Elsa yells, "Mom, wait!" Iduna says, "I'm sorry, sweetie, we have to go. There are questions that need answering." "What if there's an accident while you're gone?" "There won't be. You'll be fine." "But how do you know?" There's a long pause. "I don't know, Elsa, but I trust you. Don't be afraid of who you are. You're exactly the person you're supposed to be." Iduna takes off one of Elsa's gloves and holds Elsa's ungloved hand in her own. Elsa tries to flinch away, but Iduna holds her hand tight and looks right into Elsa's eyes and says, "Your powers, we may not understand them, but I've always believed they're a gift, a rare gift, and so are you, Elsa. I love you." Iduna smiles and hugs Elsa, then the memory fades away. We see real Elsa crying and laughing at the same time. She gathers herself, stands up, and reinvigorated by her mother's love, melts the frozen lake and swims to the surface. The water horse is there waiting for her. She gets on its back and starts galloping downstream, back to the forest. Then we cut back to Anna just as she's about to be crushed by the rock giant. Then, with a millisecond despair, Kristoff gallops in on Sven and snatches her from the clutches of certain death. Together they ride to the dam and with the help of the Arendelian guards, provoke the giants and destroy the dam. We see the magic from the reservoir flowing back into the forest, rejuvenating the spirits, brightening the colors, lifting the curse. The forest is saved. Let's walk through why this rewritten version of the third act is more satisfying than what we actually got. First, the way that Elsa uses ice tunnels to delve deeply into Ahtohallan is a fun callback to earlier in the movie, and just a clever way of having the two magic systems interact. Second, in the actual movie, destroying the dam conveniently unfreezes Elsa, which is probably the most contrived part of the movie. In this version, Elsa and Anna's subplots are intertwined, and their all-is-lost moments coincide for maximum effect. Then in quick succession, we have both of those plots resolve themselves in a satisfying way without relying on any unexplained plot contrivances. Third, both Elsa and the audience get more closure on the deaths of Agnar and Iduna. Fourth, there's more urgency to the finale. By making Ahtohallan the source of power for the forest spirits, we can have Elsa's freezing of Ahtohallan put the forest in even greater peril. This adds a ticking clock to the destruction of the dam and gives more weight to Anna's actions. And fifth, instead of making Elsa the fifth spirit and calling it a day, this version gives Elsa a proper character arc, where she learns to trust the love her parents had for her, and in turn learns to love herself. The fact that Elsa goes to a mystical memory river in the actual movie, but doesn't in some way use that to come to terms with the trauma of her childhood, is a massive missed opportunity. In the actual movie, Iduna shows up for a second, but it just feels tacked on since they didn't actually set up Iduna as an important aspect of Elsa's arc. So that's the lion's share of this rewrite. The rest of the movie plays out in much the same way. Kristoff proposes, Elsa decides to live with the Northuldra, and Anna becomes queen. The plot involving the dam has been resolved in a more dramatic way, the mythology is a little simpler and makes the finale more coherent and focused, and Elsa gets the catharsis she needs to forgive her parents and truly accept herself. So, that's how I'd rewrite Frozen 2. I hope you guys enjoyed that. I have another video, like I mentioned, which describes why I think Elsa should have found her parents' ship at the beginning of the movie. That video also goes into a different arc that I think Elsa should have had, which is different from the arc of self-love or self-discovery that she has in this rewrite. So if that sounds interesting, then by all means go check that out. I again want to shout out the channel Nando V Movies. Nando, who runs that channel, does these one small change rewrite videos, kind of like this one. His style heavily influenced this video, so I just want to give that a shout out. Also check out the channel Hello Future Me. Specifically, Tim, who runs that channel, made a series of videos on defining hard and soft magic systems. I refer to those videos a lot when I was trying to come up with a more coherent mythology surrounding Ahtohallan and the forest spirits. It's an amazing series, definitely worth a watch. And of course, if you like this video, please like and subscribe. I'm new to the video essay game, but if you like this, then subscribe to hear about some new videos I have coming out. Specifically, I'm currently finishing the script for another video on Anna's arc in Frozen 2, which was more or less cut from the final movie. So I'm looking into some interviews with the cast members and looking at some of the songs that got cut from the final soundtrack to try to reconstruct what I think her arc was going to be. If that sounds good, definitely subscribe to hear about that. I'll see you then.